Hey guys, Blue here. I wanted to make this video a couple weeks ago, um, but I decided to hold off until the PTS closed, just to make sure that anything that I discussed in here was still, up to date, current, relevant, things like that. I didn't want there to be a lot of redundant info in the video, so I figured, what the hell, PTS ended today, so let's just go ahead and get it done. I do have a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about today. Regarding update 1.7, the future of PTS on consoles, at least my opinion on it, and a bunch of other things. So let's just get right cracking into it because I've got a lot to go over. First and foremost, this is probably not news to anybody watching this channel, as there are plenty of other YouTubers that have already covered it and whatnot. But again, just in case, the PTS did end today. It closed this morning, so that's it. There's not going to be a PTS 4 or anything like that. There's not going to be anything on console or PC. They've wrapped it up, and they're going to take the info they have. They're going to make the update with it, and it'll be out in a few weeks. Tentatively, mid-August is what has been recently communicated. That's what they're shooting for. So in a week or two, or I'm sorry, in about 2 weeks or so, it should go live, and it'll typically be on Tuesdays because that's just how things run on console, and as a result, everybody in the player base typically gets it on Tuesday. I don't know if mid-August would be, realistic. Maybe later in August, closer to, the end of the month, maybe. I might consider that more realistic, but, maybe I'm just... maybe I'm not being very optimistic about it. I don't know. But again, mid-August, late August, I think is more than likely when to expect it. If it comes a little bit later, it comes a little bit later. I'd rather it take a little longer and come out working than to get it ASAP and then have everything in the world wrong with it. So nobody likes broken stuff. Now regarding PTS on consoles moving forward, while I think it was a wonderful gesture to get PTS on consoles, I really think that there was just too many things about it that kind of ruined it for everyone, for the most part. I would say, the whole invite system, while I understand, the reasoning behind it, I think it really soured a lot of people's opinions regarding, massive and whatnot, as far as how the invite system was handled and how it was implemented. A lot of people feel that there wasn't enough transparency in terms of communicating issues regarding the invites, and all that, and then there was an issue with PS4 players in particular in North America that didn't even need to get invites because for whatever reason the PTS showed up in the store early, and if you preloaded it then, you didn't need an invite because you were in. That was it. That was your access. So a lot of people were pretty mad about that, outside of North American PS4 players. So again, there were a lot of things that just did not go to plan, and it really kind of left a bad taste in everybody's mouth, especially those who, met all that initial criteria, where they should have gotten an invite, the higher, playtime, fair amount of recent playtime, and all that, and then they still never got an invite, even, up until just yesterday, the last possible day that, you could even consider getting one to even get in on it. Some of these people did not get invites, and it left a lot of people pissed off. So again, I think that, again, while it's a nice gesture to get us in on it, to get our input, I don't think that moving forward, I don't think consoles should really get the PTS, at least without some major changes to the whole process. Maybe do it similar to how Battlefield did with their CTE a few years ago, where it was open to anyone who owned the game and the premium service or something, so the season pass, if you will. It would just, if you owned the season pass, you had access to this in the store or whatever. But that was, again, only on PC. It eventually kind of came to Xbox One, but it it wasn't the same, and you could tell that it just did not have the same amount of effort and whatnot put into it. So with how hard it is to update things on console in a timely fashion because of first-party certification processes, and there's really a lot more involved in that than some people think. It's not just a matter of, checking to make sure that this update works. That's not what they do. It's not up to Sony or Microsoft to determine how the patch functions. That's not their job. That's the quality control from the developers and publishers. It's their job to make sure it works. First party certification involves making sure things don't, go against terms of service, that the developers have to follow for their networks. So there's a lot of stuff involved that some people don't realize. It's not a simple, click a button and hey, it works. Hey, it doesn't work. Okay, why isn't it certified yet? It's not how it goes. So that's that. Because of that alone, that alone right there is enough for me to say, look, it's just too much of a hassle on console. Yeah, a lot of people wanted it, but this time we got it, and not very many people appreciated it. Not many people took the time to use it as it was, intended to be. It just, I don't know. People didn't test things. People didn't appreciate what they did get to test. It was just, it was horribly implemented. But again, through no direct fault of Massive or anyone at Ubisoft or anything like that. That's just how it is on console. That's the downside that we have to put up with. So again, PTS ended, tentative release mid-August. Let's get into classified gear sets and why I think that classified builds will never become the meta. Okay, so now that PTS has ended, unless they make some further dramatic changes to how, to the drop rates of classified gear, be it in the global event caches or anything like that, unless those drop rates are dramatically increased, they are still going to be extremely hard to get, and I think that is the best possible thing. I really think that this game needs stuff, that it's just simply not for the casual player. There needs to be something that people who invest a lot of time and a lot of effort into it, for the ones that can, they should have something that, is just for them. The people who really, really, really play it. And it should be strong. I don't think it's something that everyone needs to have, because that would create a major, problem with, the balance of the game again. It'll throw everything off all over again, and then we're going to be stuck with a game that needs another 1.4 style update to rebalance everything, and that's just not what we need anymore. Classified gear. It has the 5 and 6 piece bonuses. Will be really, really strong. Yes. But I say that it will never become the meta because of how, how incredibly, rare it is to actually get one of these pieces. They made them a little bit more common in PTS 3 with, a slightly increased drop rate inside the global event caches. But even still, after lots and lots and lots of playtime in the PTS, probably 30 caches bought, I got one piece of classified gear out of that. And that was some serious dedication and time into the PTS, really, really grinding, getting as many caches as I could over the course of a couple of days and getting one piece of classified gear. It's not going to be an issue because of how rare it's going to be. And over time, as future global events are going to increase more or introduce more and more gear sets into the equation, getting the pieces that you want is just going to get harder. It's only going to get worse. So think of it this way. Yeah, the 6-piece striker meta in the Dark Zone was complete crap. Everybody was running it. But you have to understand that that's not going to be a thing in the live game. That's just not going to be possible. You're not going to run into someone within 2 weeks with a full min-maxed 6-piece striker build. You're simply not. The pieces aren't going to be that rare. Even the hardest of the hardcore, the ones who spend you know, 8 to 10 hours a day playing this thing, they might have half a set in 2 weeks. You know, and that's not good. And you also have to consider that you are at RNGesus' mercy here. You have to deal with what RNGesus gives you. RNGesus is cruel. So think of this. Yeah, let's say you even get extremely lucky. You get 2 caches in a row that has a classified item in it. What if box A has a classified striker mask, and then you open it up the next box and you see it's another classified striker item? Shit, it's another mask. Oh man, you know, you're not going to get all the pieces you want consistently and easily. You know, you might get the same piece 2 or 3 times in a row. And then you also have to factor in that there are 3 gear sets per global event. That's 18 pieces total. And not all of them are going to be good. Not all of them are going to be what you want. You're probably going to end up getting duplicates. So you have to think, it's probably going to be a while before you see anyone with a full, proper, classified gear build. And then as more and more sets get introduced, potentially up to 18 more pieces per global event, that just makes, you know, the piece that you're looking for even harder to find. You know, where it's drop rate, where you may have had like a 0.5% chance of getting the piece you wanted before, you know, now you get down to 0.25, 0.01, and it's just going to get worse and worse as they, you know, introduce more and more classified versions of the builds. So RNGesus is not going to be your friend. So I don't think they're ever going to become the meta. Now this is what I think should have been tested by a lot more people, and this is what I spent a lot of time doing personally, are the Ninja Bike Messenger backpack combo builds. You know, that is going to be what takes over the game day one. As soon as update 1.7 launches, there are people who've had, you know, have been sitting on, you know, half a dozen Ninja Bike backpacks. I myself have like 10. So I'm going to be able to put together quite a good number of builds right from the get-go. I'm going to be able to put them together and have some really, really strong Alpha Bridge builds, some really, really, really ridiculous Tactician Healer builds. There's plenty of stuff that I feel a lot of people didn't test, and they're going to regret it, because they're going to be waiting and hoping and praying to get their 6-piece striker builds as soon as possible, only to discover that they're not going to get it in anything resembling a timely manner, while the people using Ninja Bike Messenger backpack builds are going to dominate the game from the very minute that update finishes installing on their game. Just stay alive. All right, guys, and last thing I want to touch base on today is, you know, that giant elephant that's dancing over in the corner over there. We can't have a 1.7 discussion video without talking about shotguns. On console, they're still a problem. I think even after the changes made in PTS 3, that they are still, in fact, a problem. And not because of shotguns themselves, but because of 2 in-game mechanics that they still have not addressed. They're changing other areas of how shotguns work, but not the real problems. One problem has been there since day one, and that is aim assist. Aim assist on semi-automatic weapons shouldn't exist in shooter games, period. Because of the amount of skill required to actually get, you know, good results with them. You know, you want success with those, you should be actually really good with them, because every shot has to count, because it's not like a full auto weapon where you can afford to miss a couple and you still have, you know, 25, 30 rounds left in your magazine. You've got plenty of room to work with to finish them off. It's not like that with semi-automatic weapons. Every shot has to hit or you're not going to win. And because of that, I don't think that semi-auto weapons in this game, or any shooter game for that matter, should have aim assist. And even more insane is the fact that aim assist still has the ability to lock onto someone's head. That makes no sense. It literally makes no sense that that's even possible. Like that should, if nothing else were to ever change about this game ever again for the rest of its existence, removing the ability for aim assist to snap to someone's head, if that was removed from the game, I could probably live with all the other problems. I'm realistically speaking, I wouldn't be happy at all still, but I could at least be over that. Aim assist should never snap to the head, ever. It should not be possible to spam a trigger and put your crosshair in a position to where it's gonna the shot that gets fired is going to do more damage than if it were to hit anywhere else. That should not be possible, and nothing you could ever say is going to make me think that that's okay. Now, the next thing too is regards to how shotguns work with the striker gear set. This has been an issue since gear sets became a thing. Now, before I get into this, you can save your breath. You don't need to convince me that shotguns are supposed to be powerful. Yes, I understand that. Shotguns should be strong. And I don't think their damage numbers are, off in any way, shape, or form. I think as far as damage goes, and, just base damage potential anyway, that shotguns are in a great place. They are still really, really strong. And you can do some serious damage up close and personal, as they should be. But I don't think that it should be possible with Striker to use a shotgun to build up those stacks. And the reason I say that is because it unlike any other weapon type in the game, shotguns have the highest possible return on investment from Striker. On a per bullet basis, you have to hit almost every single bullet, miss nothing, to get a very large damage increase from your weapons using Striker. No other full auto weapon or no other semi-automatic weapon in the game other than shotguns can give you such a huge damage output increase. And why does that make sense? The short answer is it doesn't. And there is no long answer, because it just doesn't make sense. You shouldn't be able to do that. If you shoot someone with a pistol, 30, 40, 50 rounds, you're still shooting them with a pistol. You're not doing enough damage. Okay, and then, hell, take a marksman rifle. Shoot someone in the chest, 20 times with a marksman rifle. You're still not getting that kind of, insane damage potential. You still have to hit them a lot to get a noticeable increase in damage. Shotguns, you can pull the trigger 3 times and be doing damn near double the damage. And with the aim assist stuff, you're pretty much guaranteed not to miss. It's so lopsided. So if you guys remember when gear sets first came out, Sentry's Call was the obvious go-to gear set for damage output. Why? Because when it first came out, you could get those 3 headshot stacks with any weapon type. People running around with AUGs and vectors and just laying into people and just doing ridiculous amounts of damage. And that damage also applied to the whole group. So everybody in your team was doing 50% more damage with how it was all multiplied together. But anyway, I'm just saying. So they obviously knew that was a problem, and they changed it. Sentry's Call would then only give you the marks with semi-automatic weapons. You could get your marks and then switch to a full auto weapon and still get the benefits, but you couldn't put those marks there in the first place with a full auto weapon. You could only do it with a pistol, shotgun, marksman rifle, or whatever. That was the only way it worked. And the only time that was never an issue, or was ever actually a problem, was in 1.3 with the whole Sentry's Call and 870 shotgun nonsense, which, they nerfed the 870, but they really didn't make the real problem go away. And that, again, is the aim assist. If they get rid of that, everything else that we've talked about becomes much less of a concern. But shotguns still have the absolute best return on investment in terms of spiking up your damage potential in a ridiculously quick amount of time. You pull that trigger 3 times, if you land all your shots because of how cheesy the aim assist is, you have, nearly doubled your damage output. Okay? You can't do that with an automatic weapon. You can't do that with any other semi-automatic weapons. So what I think is that maybe it should be something along the lines of Striker's gear you can only build the stacks with full auto weapons. But you can still switch to a semi-automatic weapon after the fact, after you've built up your stacks, and your semi-automatic weapon can still take advantage of that huge damage increase. So that would mean that shotguns could still use the benefits of Striker, but they wouldn't be able to build them up themselves that fast. It worked for Sentry back then, when 1.4 came out and they, nerfed M870s into oblivion in terms of damage anyway. But the grand scheme is that worked enough to get rid of, the huge problem that 870 and Sentry's Call made at the time. So I think that it needs to be done with Striker as well. Make Striker only stackable with full auto, and then you can switch to your semi-automatic weapon, such as a shotgun or marksman rifle or whatever the case, or even like the Urban MDR. Switch over to that and rattle off a couple headshots and down somebody instantly. Cool. And that would be fair, because at least it actually took a little bit of skill, a little bit of effort to actually get those stacks in the first place. What do you guys think?
That was so ridiculous.
What do you like? What do you think of my suggestions for Striker, shotguns, aim assist, and all that? Let me know in the comments. If you have any other questions or concerns, comment sections where that stuff goes too. Until then, I'll catch you guys in the next one. And again, hit that like button.